everybody, and welcome to Life Chatz with Maggie and Bunny. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Bunny.
Hello, hello, hello. Well, today, do we have a treat for you? Today, Bunny and I are happy to welcome Kim Lee. Kim is an empowerment coach dedicated to helping others unlock their full potential and live a life with purpose and fulfillment. Kim specializes in anxiety and mental health. With a deep passion for personal development and a wealth of experience in guiding individuals through a transformative journey, Kim is supporting others as they work through overcoming the obstacles and discovering strengths and achieving their most ambitious goals. Together, Kim and her clients cultivate a mindset of empowerment, resilience, and confidence, enabling them to embrace their true self and create the life they've always been dreaming of. Today, we welcome you, Kim, and welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And we're going to open up the floor now to you to tell us a little bit about what you do, what is an empowerment coach, why would somebody want to hire one, and stuff like that. So you're up.
Yeah.
So, I 30 plus years ago, I experienced anxiety disorder. And at that time, I could not take the medication that the doctors wanted me to prescribe to. And so I went on a holistic journey then, self-advocating for myself, really, because I didn't really know. I was blindly kind of going along. And through the 30 years, I have established a very good, substantial tool belt to be able to manage anxiety and stress. So I really would like to, I'm very passionate about sharing that information. I believe people who may have to take medication for anxiety disorder, but I also would like people to know and realize that that doesn't have to be lifelong, that there are alternative and they're proven methods to be able to manage and be successful in your life, dealing with debilitating state of being. I feel that I can relate to my clients. I find anxiety is something that, especially when you have severe anxiety, it's something very hard to relate to unless you've been through it. So having that person, a coach that can have empathy with you, can relate to you, is a great support. It's a sense of support from someone, for them to be able to realize, hey, somebody does know how I feel, right? And I've worked with clients that it just clicks and they go, wow, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
So, and that's significant. From my own experience, when I was going through what I was going through, the therapists that I was speaking with, it's textbook.
Right.
Right? It's somebody having a university degree, and to be able to have empathy and be able to support somebody through a textbook, I don't think it's possible. I was steered so wrong long
Right.
ago, and I went like, I know I was lost, but I would really stress with clients or potential clients that doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So,
mean, I'm sure you're not saying that like all therapists are lumped
no,
into
no,
that. Yeah, for
no,
sure.
not at all.
And that some
Not at
people
all.
can, but for sure, for the people who have found that maybe the traditional or conventional way of
Mhm.
therapies aren't working for them, that you offer them an
Yes,
alternative, and
that's right.
another, or even something that can help as an add-on to even traditional therapy or medication,
Oh,
as you said. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
hand in hand for sure. Yes. I just find that doctors are there for a prescription. That's what they're there to do. They're there to prescribe medication, right? But they're not giving that alternate
Right.
information to patients, right?
Yeah.
And it kind, I think for someone that hasn't been through this, they don't realize that there is the holistic ways
Right.
of recovering, and there are there's a lot of information that can help someone understand what is happening in their own body,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Because it, like, for myself, when I got severe, um I thought that there was something physically wrong with me,
Okay.
and I'm
Yeah.
sure lots of people do, because there's physical aspects. And it took me, I bet you, a good year for it to get in my head that there was not something physically wrong with me,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
I just didn't understand that our brain takes up so much energy
Yeah.
without moving,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
didn't understand that, that could happen.
And as you're saying this, it does kind of remind me that oftentimes things like menopause go untalked about
Hmm.
because people don't realize all the changes that happen there.
That's
And,
right.
anxiety and that type of thing can be put into that same category. Oftentimes, people are medicated to alleviate the symptoms, not to get to
Mhm.
the root of what the initial and what the real problem is. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that I understand what you're talking about, because it's the same type of thing as people suffering from depression. And you hear people say, well, why don't you just be happy? Well, because it's not that easy.
No,
And
no,
anxiety, when people say, well, why don't you just stop being anxious? Oh, yeah, because that's super easy. It's all
exactly.
of those little things that compound and make it
Mhm.
harder for people to get the help that they need, because they're
Mhm.
often told that they're doing something to cause this.
Yes,
And a lot of the
yes.
time, it's not that.
No, no. And I find the medication they give you, that's more of a band-aid than a solution, right?
Mhm.
And I think long time ago when I was suffering, that's the way I felt, right? And to be honest, I could take medication, but the medication that I could take was all addictive. And it's
Mm.
like, no, I'm not taking this stuff. Um, I didn't want to go down that road, right?
Mhm.
But I mean, that was the alternative that the doctors were giving me, to say, okay, you can't take this more addictive Valium type. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
right? I had to say no, right?
Right.
Right. So
And
So,
so
every
at
person has to choose for themselves
right.
what path they want to go on. There are more
yes,
than one path and more than one road to get to a certain destination,
Yeah.
but each
yes,
individual person has to decide what path they want to go on, and
yes.
not to discount people who choose medication.
Right.
That is perfectly
No,
fine
no,
if that's the route you want to choose,
that's
but
right.
not everybody wants to choose that road.
No,
And
no,
Kim, you were saying this was like 30 years ago. So
yes,
and 30 years ago, like if we could all go back and move back in that way back when time machine, 30 years ago, mental health wasn't talked about even as
no,
much. I mean, I know that even now there's still a stigma, and it isn't talked about as much as it should be. but it is
Mhm.
talked about
Mhm.
more than it was 30 years ago. So 30 years
Absolutely,
ago,
yeah.
what was it like? How did you find your path? Like, what was that first little bright light that you were like, maybe I need to go this way? Almost that lighthouse kind of beckoning you to the shore.
Yeah. Well, first thing I did is I I went to a massage therapist, and because I realized I needed the tension or whatever was going on in my body, I needed it to settle down. So I did go to a massage therapist. I mean, initially when I went to her, the next day I felt I had been rolled, but I talked to her. She was very new massage therapist as well. Um, I talked to her and I said, look, can we do this a little lighter touch, right? And so I worked with her quite a bit, and I think we learned from each other,
Mhm.
right? And that just, she was very intuitive. So when I didn't think I was getting better, she would say, Kim, your shoulders are down, you're not blinking as much. She could pick out the signals of how she could see me visually getting better where I couldn't see that myself. So again, there's a support,
Right.
right? Where someone as a client, they're not going to see that, right?
Right.
You don't know these little things, um, which would be initial wake up calls,
Mhm.
right? That are are going to be helpful, right?
Mhm.
And so now that I've learned those cues, right? Okay, your shoulders are going up, you're blinking, right? I know those cues. So that was the first. And I mean, I had to quit my job. I
Okay.
just, that was like taking off my right arm.
Mhm.
I didn't know what to do with myself. So, but I did sleep a lot. I learned how much energy your brain takes
Mhm.
without moving, right? Because I would get up, I would get up for a little while and my mind was just zooming,
Right.
zooming, zooming, zooming. I tried to do a little bit, and then, um, I did go to the hospital. They did send me up with a nurse that taught me deep breathing. So, belly breathing.
Right.
And that made sense. See, things that I started to do made sense to me because she
Right.
said, look at a baby. I went,
Mhm.
oh, okay, that makes sense. So my breathing, which I did not, there's another thing, another cue, another thing
Mhm.
I did not know, that your breathing rhythms can change
Mhm.
from breathing from your stomach to breathing to your chest.
Yeah.
So all my breathing, every bit of it was coming from my chest. So I had to relearn how to breathe.
Right.
It's like who would know?
Yeah.
How would you know that? Right?
Right.
Mhm.
So I did deep breathing 4 or 5 times a day, right? Put my hand on my stomach, made sure that the breathing was coming from my stomach. That was, something that I did not know. I learned, right?
Mhm.
And that was a very important part of my getting well, is
Mhm.
getting myself to learn how to breathe properly,
Right.
naturally, right?
I found
Yes.
for myself when I was having anxiety attacks, I noticed the breathing too,
Hmm.
because it was always up here
Hmm.
and you're always in that fight or flight mode. Like
Yep.
I was always being chased by a bear. I was
Hmm.
breathing like I was being chased by a bear, and I didn't know how to relax that. You know, it's like you said, the
No,
shoulders are here. You can't relax that because you don't know how.
no.
And that's where meditation and mindfulness
Hmm.
taught me that, to being in the
Yes.
moment and using my breath for just in and out and focusing just on that, nothing else.
Yes.
Because at that time, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, you can't focus on anything else because there's a bear chasing you.
No, that's right.
But I could breathe 4 times and I would just in and
Yes.
out and say a mantra to myself. I
Hmm.
am at peace as I breathe deeply in
Hmm.
and let it all out. So breathing, that's one thing that we take for granted.
We do.
We all have it, and it is a tool to help us as well. But oftentimes people overlook that, and to see how it's different.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
you don't realize. Like I would have never thought that I didn't breathe properly anymore.
Mhm.
You know, like who would know?
And I didn't know shoulders went down.
No.
I had been so long like this
Yeah,
that I didn't know that
I know.
you could relax
Yeah,
them. You know,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know how to get myself into that state. And that's where you can't just say to somebody, just relax. Because
yeah.
clearly, if they knew how to do that, they'd already be doing it.
That's right.
And when somebody is suffering from anxiety or mental health issues, they've already tried everything that they know to do.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's where, as you say, having empathy for somebody and
Hmm.
starting off at the basics.
Yeah,
What does your body feel?
that's right. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Wow,
yeah.
that's powerful.
It is powerful. It is powerful that, and that's why I'm so passionate about coaching and helping people who I don't want anyone to suffer like I did. I mean,
Hmm.
I say I went the holistic method. It took me 2 years, right, to go that direction. I know, and that's why I want to share that, because I know with the tools that I have, you don't have to go 2 years, right?
Hmm.
When you're talking about the deep breathing and belly breathing, something else that is great about it is that it is very, you can do it no matter what. If you're walking down the street, if you, right, it's something, it's non-evasive. It's not going, nobody's not going to know you're doing it, right?
Right.
And learning that, hey, I can do this and nobody's going to see that I'm doing it, right? So, because I also was, when I got anxiety, I also had social anxiety. I just, some of the places I went when I was younger, I couldn't go anymore because I was just fearful. So learning, oh, learn, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my screen disappeared. Um, so just, yeah, just learning that, it's something that I can do no matter where I am, and nobody's going to want know I'm doing it, made me more comfortable about going
Hmm.
slowly, but more comfortable about going out, right?
Because that's
And
one of the fears of anxiety, is people knowing that you have anxiety.
Yeah.
yes.
And when I share publicly about it, that's what I say to people. It's, if we can all authentically share this kind of stuff without fear, it breaks
Mhm.
down that wall. We
It
don't have to be
does.
afraid to admit we experiencing times of anxiety.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of people are afraid because they're afraid of the stigma that goes along with that. And when you're
Mhm.
authentic and I'm authentically sharing about experience that we have, it gives other people permission to
Yes.
be real about what they're going through too. And being real about the fear of people knowing what's
Mhm.
happening to you is
Right.
is a very real thing, because
Yes.
we don't talk about this stuff enough in our world, and we should. You know, suffering from anxiety is no different than any other illness that somebody may have. And we don't judge people for having a headache. We don't judge people for having tonsillitis. But our society sometimes judges people for having anxiety or mental health issues. And that's where being open and authentic and having these conversations, we can put an end to that.
I agree. It's like having a broken leg.
Right. Yeah.
But and I mean, people are going to accept that you have a broken leg.
Yeah.
Right. But and to be honest, I select vendor fairs, and that's the reason I go. I don't go necessarily to sell anything. I go to make contact with people and talk to people. It's amazing how many people like that I'll hand them a pamphlet, or and they start talking, right? But I know, but it's a way of starting to share this, um and letting people know there is help available out there. There are other people that have suffered, that have the tools to be able to support somebody very successfully, right? So yeah, it's
I think we could do a little segue here and say what tools or how do you help people? Like I know that in this call here, you've already given some good little things and tidbits, but like what is it that you do with your
Sure, I have all kinds of tools. Essential oils, I do my essential oils, lavender, for calmness, right? I also do when I was very ill, I used a lot of lavender. I used it in my bath. I learned a lot about essential oils, and actually the massage therapist got me into that, because it was funny because I couldn't drive on the highway. I didn't put myself on the highway because I was having out of body experiences, which apparently is another another symptom of anxiety. So I thought, okay, I won't go on the highway. So she concocted me an essential oil concoction so that I could drive, right? So that's how I learned about essential oils, putting like lavender and bergamot and orange together to, to stay calm, to be awake, but also the calmness part was really essential for me. So I learned a lot about essential oils. Also, what I learned about herbal teas. So when I start getting that chamomile tea, I lived on chamomile tea. Lived on it. I carried a great big coffee mug of chamomile tea around. And I mean, everybody thought I was carrying coffee.
Yeah.
But you know what? I learned about the chamomile tea. I actually took a 12-week mindfulness stress reduction course from a doctor in Oakville. His Dr. Van, can't think of his name at the moment. But he was a psychiatrist, and he was offering a 12-week course. It was called Mindfulness Stress Reduction, and it was in Oakville. You got a interview with him, and upon the interview getting accepted, it was covered by OHIP for the 12 weeks. Catch was, if you didn't show up, you had to pay for that night. So I made sure I went. And so he was very, very helpful in the fact that he helped me understand my brain
Right.
and the state of my brain, right? So when we're in the state of anxiety, like you said, fight or flight, we don't, that's our old brain. That is an instinct of ours. It's an instinct from our old brain. It's not abnormal, but like you said, it's abnormal when it becomes a cycle, right?
Yeah.
So what I learned is we have to get a balance. We have to use our right brain, which we don't use our right brain enough, right? So right brain is our creative brain. So doing art, getting out in nature, gardening, right? Using that right brain, and which we don't do enough. We don't use our right brain enough. So using that brain part of our brain also helps us out of that cycle, right? So I mean, I found what we learned very interesting, right? And so also what we did with him, part of the mindfulness, it was learning to be mindful. So living in the moment, right? We did 3 hours, 3 hours of meditation every 12 weeks, or once a week for 12 weeks. We had little breaks in between, and we would do an hour, we would talk, we would do an hour, we would talk, right? So we learned mindfulness. And so part of the mindfulness was slowing down, right? Slowing down. And so two exercises, or an exercise that someone could do would be slowing down 2 things a day. So maybe going in the shower or having your bath, right? Slowing it down. You get undressed, you feel the rug, you put your toe in the tub or the shower, you feel the water hitting you, you feel the temperature. How strong is it? Is it hard? Is it pelting, or is it light? Slowing everything down, right? Completely. When you're in the shower and you're washing your hair, what does that feel like? What does your fingers? And doing this exercise, I had problems sleeping when I was going through this as well. Now I find if I'm having trouble sleeping, I'll lay in my bed and I'll go through my head and I'll go through my body. How does the sheets feel on your feet, right? What does that feel like? What is the warmth? And you know what? I'm asleep. Boom.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem anymore. You get in the moment. You get out of your head, right? Get out of your head and just be.
Because
Right?
very much of what we do in life, and what life, and I say in quotation marks, life teaches us, is to be on autopilot.
Yes.
And part of this is learning how to come off of autopilot, because
Right.
sometimes when you're stuck in autopilot, stuck going fast, and you need to come off of autopilot. So like you said, you can slow it down. You can slow down any activity that you're doing, whether it's, like you said, showering, getting undressed, washing the dishes. Slow down and feel the emotions that are in your body, and deciding which ones you want there and which ones you don't want there.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for how many years have you been seeing clients?
Well, I received my certificate during COVID. So to 2020,
Mhm.
I started, I did my course during COVID, and I started working with clients then. Mhm.
Wow.
Do you work with
Yeah.
clients virtually or in person?
Yeah, so it's mostly done over the phone. I can
Okay.
also do Zoom. I could do in person as well if somebody, but you know what I find, for someone that is suffering anxiety,
Mhm.
um I think they are best and more comfortable either doing Zoom or on the phone,
Right.
right?
And I mean, I
It
guess
gives,
in person would also have to be like within your area too. And so this can kind of
yeah.
help you.
It does, it does. But I also force, like I said, for somebody suffering like they
Mhm.
are, I know I didn't want to go out when I was really sick. So it can be done virtually, and it keeps them in their comfort zone, right?
Right.
Hmm. And that's the nice thing about even over the telephone. Somebody
Hmm.
doesn't have to get out of their pajamas. They don't need to feel the
No,
pressure of having a clean house. They don't have to have the pressure of having their hair done
Right.
or all of that stuff. Because
that's
sometimes
right.
for people who suffer from anxiety, those things are huge.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Like,
are.
to other people, it can be as, normal as switching a light on to go and have a shower. But to somebody who's in a time of anxiety, having a shower can take all the spoons you have of that day,
Yeah.
can take all of your energy,
Mhm.
and then there's nothing left. So,
That's right. Huh,
allowing people to be in their safe comfort zone is huge.
Mhm.
it is huge. You're right. It does. Like I said, when I was very, in the height of anxiety, I can't believe how much time I spent sleeping,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because my brain was just, over functioning. And so the time that I was awake was short,
Right.
because I just become exhausted. So
Hmm.
yes, you're right. It, and I know I had a coach, or he wasn't a coach, he was a counselor,
Mhm.
private counselor. And yeah, he came to my house a couple
Mhm.
times, which was very, very nice of him to do. So I kind of learned that back then, that, it is nice to be able to have that person, whether you depending on how well you are,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
Be able to get in touch with you and still go through a session without you being present, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I think you've shared so much information today about that, but I know that as we were talking and getting to know you a little bit more at the beginning, before we started recording, you mentioned that you're an author and that you have some books that you've been that you have there.
Yes,
So if you'd like to share some information about that, this would be the time to do it.
sure.
Yeah.
So I have been, so this is the first book I did. It's a guiding hand, and it's 10 top coaches. It's a great starting resource for anyone, for any reason. And then the second one is A Promise to Spring.
Mm, yeah.
Um, Harness Your Power. So both of the books that I've co-authored are available on my website.
Perfect.
They have different tips and um, resources, right, that can be used initially. I think I also would like to say, I know that I specialize in anxiety and um, mental health, but I can also coach people on other aspects,
Perfect.
single moms, uh, domestic issues,
Mm,
menopause, as you
right.
said. Yeah, and that information is on my website.
Perfect.
So my website is thepapillonstudio.ca.
Perfect.
You can find out, again, my books and my coaching sessions. I have different sessions that people can choose. And it gives you also more information about me.
Right. Okay, perfect. Well, while we're on that, do you have, like, how can people get in contact with you? I know the website that you just said, and I will
Yes.
link that in the descriptions.
Sure. So people can get a hold of me through my website, and then as well my email, thepapillonstudio@gmail.com. They can also call or text me. The phone number is 289-219-2400. I'm not opposed to anyone texting me and saying, hey, I'd like to, know more about you or
Right.
have a question. I do an initial 45-minute complimentary consultation. That is so that I can ensure that, for one, to make sure that the person is within my realm.
Right.
I know that, I know the boundary as to where a person is over my head.
Right.
Right.
And where I, may be complimentary with, some other counseling I could do.
Right.
But I want to ensure that I click with the client, right? So I do that. So usually within that first session, both of us can say, hey, yeah, we're this is going to work for us.
Mhm.
Perfect.
That's great. Well, you've given us a lot to think
Yes.
about, and a
Awesome.
lot for our listeners to observe and
Yeah.
observe and absorb
Yes, it is a
about
lot.
anxiety. And yeah, I'm sure there will be people who want to find out more about it. And Bunny will put it in our links that how they can get a hold of you and all of that kind of stuff. So on that, Bunny, why don't you tell people how to hear about us?
Well, first, we want to thank Kim for joining us today and thank our listeners for listening. And as always, if you would like to find out more about us, you could go to our website at ataboveandbeyond.com or reach out by email at ataboveandbeyond@gmail.com. Follow us on social media, @aboveandbeyond, and find us everywhere you can listen to your podcasts and YouTube and Facebook. That's it for today. Bye from us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you, ladies.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye-bye.